welcome. This is the IDW panel for the year 2018 at Emerald City Comic Con. Appreciate you all being here. My name is Sarah Gatos. I am group editor at IDW. I have a great set of panelists here that are going to kind of tell you about what's going on with them in the past, what's going on in the future, and then at the very end of the panel, we have a special exclusive announcement of a new book, and we'll also do a Q&A session. So if a question pops up in your head as you hear what we're having to say, towards the end, please come up to the mic and we'll do some Q&A. So this is our wonderful panelists. I'd love to go down the line, and if you could introduce yourself and say what books you're working on for me and for other people, that'd be great.
Hi, my name is Jen Vaughn, and I wrote Goosebumps, Download and Die with Sarah as my editor, and I'm also drawing Vixens from Archie.
I'm Derek Charm. I'm one of the artists on Star Wars Adventures.
I'm also Derek Charm, and no, sorry. I'm Ryan Ferrier. I write G.I. Joe versus the $6 Million Man, and yeah, I'm into it, so cool.
My name's Max Dunbar. I'm the artist on Gears of War, Rise of Rom, and Judge Dredd.
I'm Delilah S. Dawson, and I'm a writer on Star Wars Adventures, Star Wars Forces of Destiny, and the X-Files Case Files.
I'm Mark Russell. I'm the writer on the new Judge Dredd series, and I've also written The Flintstones and Exit Stage Left, The Snagglepuss Chronicles for DC.
Thank you guys all so much for being here. And unfortunately, we're going to start with Clue, and Paul's not here yet. So this is one of those things where we have a good relationship with Hasbro, and sometimes we just throw them some weird ideas, like let's make a comic book out of a board game. Turns out, it turns into a really gorgeous comic. This cover by George Caltsoldas kind of gets at the heart of it. It is the Clue that you're familiar with, but it is definitely kind of reimagined through the lens of our modern time, as opposed to kind of the old fuddy-duddies that you might have known from the game. I think this kind of sums it up. There's a hedge fund manager, there's a rapper, there's a senator. It's something that's a lot more understandable to today's readers. And here's Paul. Yay, Paul! Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Yay!
We forgot his entrance music, though.
Yeah. All right. Take a breath, and then we'll talk about Clue. So I wasn't lucky enough to edit this comic, but Paul, when the editor did come to you about this, did he say, start it from scratch, completely reinvent it? Did you get directions from Hasbro? How on earth did this come to be?
I was told that Hasbro and IDW had talked about their mutual interest in doing a Clue comic if the right pitch came along, so no pressure there. They gave me fairly free rein. They said that it had to be the classic Clue characters, but not the characters from the movie, if that makes sense. So those same names and general positions, but they wanted something that was similar to the spirit of the movie as well. But other than that, they kind of just cut me loose, and I turned in like a really wild, bizarre pitch that I thought would probably get turned down, but I figured it was the thing I wanted to do. So, and then you guys were incredibly supportive of it, and we made it happen.
And Nelson Daniel did such an incredible job on the art. I mean, the detail of these rooms, and my favorite thing about it is that you have this really bizarre butler character who is continuously breaking the fourth wall. Where the heck did that come from?
Yeah, I wanted to play with the conventions of the genre. I wanted to acknowledge both that it was a murder mystery and also that it was a comic book. So I created this character who could basically talk to the audience and say, hey, this is a comic, so this is what you got to expect, and this is a murder mystery, so this is what you got to expect. And if you have that, naturally it makes sense. If he knows he's in a comic, he would know there's an editor, and he would be able to let that editor know if he doesn't like things that are going on.
And there at the bottom of this page, you can see that's editor Carlos Guzman kind of talking with the character. And Carlos plays a interesting role towards the end of the book, and that's all I'm going to say about it. So I guess the other question I have, have you seen Battleship, the movie? It's not great.
Have I?
Yeah,
I have not, no.
okay.
I'm gonna go out and
So-
rent it tonight, though.
Yeah. The fact that you were able to do something that actually made sense in terms of the world of Clue and was good, I was deeply impressed.
Well, thank you, I
So,
appreciate that.
thank you for doing this with Carlos. I love it. And again, this is something that you can buy as a trade paperback now, and I hope you guys check it out. And you can watch Battleship if you want. It's cool. I'm going to go ahead and skip around past Cosmic Scoundrels in case Andy is able to join us. So we're skipping over to Goosebumps. This is a project, this is the second volume of Goosebumps that we're doing, and it's one of my favorite things to work on, this kind of child horror, horror for kids. It's one of my favorite things growing up is watching things that maybe you weren't really supposed to watch, or reading Christopher Pike books, or reading Goosebumps. And I think it allows kids to kind of push their boundaries and kind of grow as people. So having Jen on this book is kind of perfect because she's able to kind of take that whole idea and run with it. Can you tell people a little bit about the book?
Yeah, thank you for that gorgeous intro. I'm the living embodiment of child horror.
Yes.
So Goosebumps, Download and Die. When we were talking about doing a Goosebumps book, we kind of wanted to, again, like with Clue, like tip of the hat to the original Goosebumps books. So I took the, gorgeous cover by Michelle Wong and then Naomi Franquise, who's another amazing artist. We wanted to do a tip of the hat to one of the original books called Say Cheese and Die from the 90s. It's about a haunted Polaroid camera, which even then, Polaroid cameras were kind of old and out of fashion, or were having their second, or their renaissance. But so this one is obviously, it's like the thing we all have on us is like a smartphone or a phone. So it's haunted apps, filters, and all this fun stuff. So the three main girls, Flips, Mitra, and Kira, they're in middle school and living their lives. One of them is new to the group, had just moved there, so it also plays on the jealousy that comes when you have your two best friends and a third person's kind of like stomping in, like, hey, let's all be, the Three Musketeers or the Sanderson sisters.
Andy, come up. Yay, Andy's here. Is it possible to get one more chair up here? Okay. So could you kind of talk about what we see here on the right-hand side? I think it's really important that Jen was able to do something that is more relevant to today's kids, and what's more relevant than being on your phone all the time. Can you talk a little bit about what they're seeing up there?
Yeah, so the cover on the right, the green one, it's kind of like a Japanese RPG game, a role-playing game, or basically a mobile game. I've actually written for these before, and I kind of wanted to definitely play with that idea that some of the baddies, the creeps in this case, were having their own little game as well, and it kind of plays with the book itself. Sorry, I was like immediately switching to this. And Christina Kelly did a great job of running with that idea for the cover. But yeah, it definitely. I forgot where I was going.
No, it's cool. So these are 3 pages from issue number 1, where the phone is revealed. And the artist is Michelle Wong, with colorist Triona Tree Farrell. And I absolutely love what they're doing. What was it like to see kind of your vision realized by these brilliant women?
I mean, I cried. It was great. The thing in a horror book and comic and probably in movies as well is you want that like ongoing sense of dread, sort of like a general unease throughout the entire book. And I think they managed to nail it in line and color as well. Like there's this like gorgeous kind of pink and teal anytime something terrible is about to happen or happening. And then it kind of goes back to the neutral tones of everyday life.
And another thing that I really love about this book is that these girls are really into like coding and math and STEM and stuff like that. Where did that come from when you were thinking about the book?
I think it came from my own nerdiness in high school and stuff. I mean, clearly, I'm just trying to look cool and wear black like everyone else on this panel. But I spent a lot of time doing, like whiz kids and like math club, and I felt like it'd be great for maybe the smart kids not to necessarily even see the stuff that's happening and recognize the horror.
Mm-hmm. So back to Goosebumps and that whole kind of reading horror, watching horror as a kid. Why do you think it resonates with kids so much?
Oh, well, they already, they're sponges, kids. They're like learning constantly, and they already don't know a lot of things though. And so to know that something is worse than what they're currently experiencing, whether it's math class, English class, or like puberty. It's kind of like it makes them feel better that they're like, this too shall pass. So.
Oh, well put. Thanks, Jen. So next up, we have this new Judge Dredd series, and we've got the writer and the artist here. And I thought it was kind of brilliant when the editor of this book, Denton Tipton, brought up that Mark was going to write this book because Mark's so well known for his satire, and I don't know why it never struck me that Judge Dredd is completely satire. So can you kind of talk about how this all came to fruition and your thoughts about Judge Dredd?
Sure. Yeah, in my opinion, all science fiction is really a form of satire.
Yeah.
So it seemed like a real natural fit for my voice and my tonality. Specifically, I wanted to talk about how a civilization sort of neglects people at its peril, and this series of Judge Dredd is sort of a parable for how neglecting infrastructure and people because they don't have any money or influence will ultimately come back to haunt us. And hopefully it's funny and violent and yet fits in with what you've seen before in Judge Dredd, but at the same time gives Judge Dredd a new perspective and a new look from what you've seen before.
And this is in 2000 AD continuity. And I think these covers are so gorgeous. And Max, if you've seen his art before in Gears of War or other books that he's done for IDW, his level of detail is crazy. And he also gets his books out on time, which is double crazy, trust me. So what was it like creating the block that you guys are creating from an artistic standpoint?
Yeah, so basically I had free reign when it came to designing it. There's a pretty strong aesthetic when it comes to Mega City 1 that's been done before. So I definitely wanted to feel like it could belong in that city, but it's also a bit of an older block. So stylistically, I could go in a bit of a different direction. So I kind of went with some of the public housing in Hong Kong and that kind of thing, these gigantic towers that are very, very dense, because that's what these blocks in Mega City 1 ultimately are. So having this like crazy mishmash of all sorts of different styles and just tons and tons of detail crammed into this thing just to create this rundown gigantic tower was a ton of fun.
So what was the interplay between you and Mark? Like, did he give you a lot of direction, a little direction?
At that time, I think for the cover, we hadn't actually corresponded that much. It was mainly through our editor, Denton, that we decided on this, but hopefully you saw some ideas and were cool with the concept.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, the artwork has been stunning, everything I've seen so far. As a writer in a visual medium, I try to give the artist as much liberty as possible. I try to let them bring as much of their creativity to the vision as possible. Some of the things we collaborate on are like the graffiti we want to see on the walls, or like the posters. At one point there's going to be a poster for a movie theater showing a movie that's not It, but it's called Sewer Clown. So just coming up with these little background details with Max has been really fun.
With all these background details, how do you manage your time, Max? I mean, you could get lost in that and then your editor would kill you.
Yes. I just work all the time.
Yeah. How? I mean, do you give yourself like a certain amount of time to do one page and things just kind of, you have to prioritize them as you go along, or?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I have a fairly rough idea of how long it takes me to do a page. I try and stick to a page a day because that allows me to have, weekends. But yeah, it's basically you start at the broad strokes, get all the information down that you need to, and then you can kind of hone in on the fine detail if you have time.
Mm-hmm. And the look of Judge Dredd here, different artists have really interpreted in different ways. Was the look that you guys decided on collaborative between you and Mark, or was it more you and your editor?
I kind of just went with as classic a look as I could find. I think everyone, as you say, ultimately puts their own spin on the character, but he's so iconic that I just tried to stick as close as I could to the sort of majority of the art that I had seen before.
Mm-hmm. And I think Judge Dredd, too, you have an expectation that there's going to be a certain level of violence that you see on the page.
Yeah.
Mark and Max, is that something that you're putting down in the script? Like, how detailed do you get with, does the viscera spray this way and this way, or?
Yeah, if there's something I think is really cool, like like a good move or somebody, or just something like a detail I think is cool, I'll put it in there. Otherwise, I try to, if it's just sort of stock footage, or if I'm not really sure, I don't really have a good idea of what the violence should look like, I'll just put it in the broadest, most undescriptive form possible, and let Max come up with something.
And then Max, is your Google image search history the most terrifying thing of all time?
I'm like definitely on some kind of list at this point. Between this and Gears of War, it's getting kind of ridiculous.
So your next book is going to be like ponies and flowers and...
It'll still probably be pretty violent.
That's perfect. All right, I'm going to skip back now that Andy's here. Hi, Andy.
Hello.
So a book that Andy was kind enough to do for us is called Cosmic Scoundrels. And you can now get this as a trade paperback with a ton of extra features. But just to kind of back it up a little bit, who are these gentlemen that we see here?
Well, they, just like Max here, I kind of was riffing off of 2000 AD, a lot of that source material. So our main characters are Rochambeau, who is a disgraced military general who is on the run for throwing a war. And his partner is this prince/gigolo named Love Savage. So cool names, right? So cool. And they're on the run from literally everybody in the galaxy.
I think it's kind of fun actually to talk to you after talking to Max, because you're another person who puts so much detail in the art. And again, I'm just so curious I'm the world's worst artist, like literally, when do you know when to stop?
Well, enough's enough. Well, I mean, growing up as a, Mad Magazine fiend, any Sergio Aragonis, anything I can do to throw kind of visual gags in the background, Xander Cannon, all those guys are just masters at it. And it's mostly about how much time I have in a night to finish a page without you getting mad at me, Sarah.
This is the life of an editor, guys.
Yeah. Sarah is actually responsible for bringing this to print, so yay, Sarah.
Yay, yes, thank you. This was originally an online project. So you may know Matt Chapman, the writer on this, from
He's one half of the Brothers Chaps from HomestarRunner.com.
And just like Homestar, which I loved very, very much, there was a lot of kind of like weird, like little clicky Easter eggs that you would have on the screen. And Matt and Andy baked that in kind of to Cosmic Scoundrels. So when it was time to bring this into a book, it was a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, we had to decide, and again, working with Sarah was fantastic, because with her we decided how to translate it to the page. Putting the small text box at the bottom, and whereas online you'd be able to click on it and it would send you to another web page. But then we baked it into some back matter.
And who's that little buddy that we see up there on the screen?
Oh, that's without giving too much away. He's a baby that they found that was their very first big heist, and they thought was anything in there except a live, baby.
It goes really well, guys, I promise.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of backup material in this book, and it's now collected in this really gorgeous edition, and Andy was even able to bake in more. Who's that gentleman?
Party Steve.
Party Steve?
Party Steve. He's the Scoundrels kind of party hookup. He's got all the good stuff, so to speak. But he goes a little too far, and dabbles in his party bag, and has a case of space something.
It's bad.
It's bad. So these guys, basically, it's a book. It's all done in good fun. Matt and I are all about promoting fun and just having a fun experience while reading it. You want to create this visceral, kinetic, frenetic feeling within the comic. Both of us have animation backgrounds, obviously, and so we wanted to bring that to the page and hopefully, evoke some sense of movement within the panels themselves. So the scoundrels, are somewhat, not, they're kind of skeevy,
Kinda.
Kinda, yeah. They're not the most PC dudes, but they end up doing the right thing.
Spoiler alert. And the page that you see on the right is kind of an example of, it's almost like a little encyclopedia that Andy and Matt were able to build.
Again, Matt and I were pulling from a lot of old source material, and Marvel's handbook the Marvel Universe handbook was such a influential piece of material for me as a kid. So when it came time to do that, I had enough on my own, but I've got a lot of really groovy friends that were willing to help out, including Derek right next to me.
Derek did
Derek Charm.
the top left one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I was surprised that people said yes. I mean, on that page alone, you have Rob Schraub, who you guys know from, Scud, Disposable Assassin, and Community, and all that. And I think Chris Schweitzer did the other one, as well as Derek here. And I have Terry Dotson and
It's
Rachel.
just pages and pages and pages of awesomeness. So
It was amazing.
definitely check it out. Maybe not for the younger readers in the room, but you can get one, and then when they grow up, you can give it to them. So thanks, Andy. Can you tease anything about Andy? Are you the creative? What is your official title?
The executive producer.
The executive producer
producer.
of the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon, which was just shown off for the first time.
It was,
the
yeah, a
toys
few
were just
weeks
shown
ago.
off for the
Yeah.
first time.
We were in New York last week to show off the toys, and
Yeah.
I've been playing with them with my kids. They're not on shelves yet. They're not
Cool.
going to be for a while, but
And I know you probably can't tell us any juicy details, but what was it like to see toys?
it was a dream come true. It was amazing, and not only that, but then to take it further, having the opportunity to take them home with me and play. I have two young kids who, 5 and 8, 2 boys, and this is going to be their generation
Yep.
of turtles.
Absolutely. I'm so
So
excited
it's
for it. What was the process? Did you provide them with designs of stuff that you wanted to see?
Yeah.
Did you throw out, like, we got to obviously have the main 4, but then I want to see these kind of play sets, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've been really integral, or it's been symbiotic.
Mm-hmm.
It's another show I worked on. But, we've been working hand in hand with Playmates and Nickelodeon consumer products and our resources. And I provide sketches, turnarounds, notes to the sculpts, pretty much at every stage. I've had some
That's
hand
pretty
in
cool.
it. It's really cool. Sometimes they listen to me, sometimes they don't.
Right.
It's okay, But again, we had this idea that the Ninja Turtles have been done so well so many times before that we didn't want to just retread the same, the same path that has actually just been done. So, it was really important for us, especially to introduce new characters
And when does the show debut?
sometime in the future.
That's exciting. Yeah. Cool. All right, so we're going to skip back over. Oops, too far. Star Wars. I've heard of Star Wars before, I think, a little book called Star Wars. Here at IDW, we have the license to do Star Wars books for kids. Not just for kids, but it's kind of the way that my boss, Chris Ryle, likes to put it, is that if you're going in to pick up the wonderful Marvel Star Wars books for yourself, if you have a younger person in your life, you can definitely pick up one of these as well and bring them home for them. Each one of these issues focus on a different part of the Star Wars universe. So you can see across the board, we see things from Last Jedi, we see things from the previous movies, we see things from the cartoons. We're incredibly lucky to be able to do these, and we have 2 wonderful people who've been working on the books here with us today. The first one is Derek Charm. Derek, you did, let's see, at least 2 of these covers, maybe more. 3 of these covers?
2 of these ones.
Okay. So when IDW approached you and said, hey, you want to do some Star Wars, did you laugh at us and think that we're insane?
No, I mean, it was amazing. It was actually like a year before it was even announced that they were like, do you want to do some test pages, what a cartoony Star Wars might look like? I mean, you worked on the Clone Wars cartoon, so I was kind of looking at that too. But yeah, just trying to think about it in that way.
So how did you approach it when we kind of tasked you with the idea of it needed to be almost viscerally different. It needed to immediately know that this is a book for younger readers, but still be faithful and recognizable. How on earth did you approach that?
Well, actually, Lucasfilm were like encouraging. They were like, make it cartoony. You don't have to worry about likenesses, and like use fun colors, and just try to do something. Like they've been like very cool about everything, like making it look completely different from what we've seen before, but still feeling Star Wars.
Can you tell us a little bit about one or two of the stories that you've worked on that you've enjoyed the most? Derek's done a ton, and they're all great.
Right now, we're working on. I did the Rose Tico issue with Delilah. And that was really fun because it was her comic book debut. We also did it like the week before the movie came out, so I had no idea who the character was at the time.
Delilah, can you kind of tell us about that process and what it was like working with Lucasfilm and with Derek?
Sure. So I started my career in novels. I write science fiction and fantasy, that sort of thing. And I got to write Star Wars Phasma. And so, I don't know, people ask me how I got into comics, and I'm like, you can't replicate it. Like, every person comes into comics where you're like, oh, I was at my Uncle Bernie's funeral, and I was standing next to, an editor. It's insane. So I was literally the only woman who had read the script, and who had any idea who Rose Tico is and her sister Paige, because they're brand new characters. So it's like, well, we need a woman who has comics writing experience, who has read the script, and it was a Venn diagram of me. So I was like, yeah, I'm so excited for it because I have some comics with Boom, but it's my first thing for IDW. So it's really neat because before anybody knew who Rose Tico was, and you never see her and Paige, her sister, on screen together. You see Paige in the beginning, and you know what happens to her, and then you see Rose dealing with the aftermath. So I actually got to show them together for kind of the first time outside of Elizabeth Ween's Cobalt Squadron book, and to show that for me at least, they're the heart of the rebellion. They are not special. They have no midichlorian count. They weren't raised by Skywalkers. They're not princesses. They're just orphans from nowhere who lost their family and want to do the right thing. And so they're kind of a unique place to show this is who I might be in the rebellion, just a normal person who wants to do the right thing. And it was awesome. And getting art from Derek, it's like if you give your parents a Christmas list in August, and then on Christmas Day it all just shows up. It's so magical.
Oh, that's so nice. So when you first read the script, well, I'll say this. I think the coolest thing about doing licensed comics, and licensed comics for a long time had a very deserved bad rap, is being able to look at a property like Star Wars or Trek or anything like that, and see kind of the cracks where you can kind of get in and flesh out something that hasn't been fleshed out before, or take things in a completely different direction, or really kind of illuminate something about the character. So when you saw Rose, obviously she called to you. What was it that you wanted people to know more about her that caused you to write the story?
It's the process with writing for Lucasfilm. There are all sorts of thumbs in that pie. The story group is involved, higher ups, and you have to kind of coordinate with all the different groups to make sure that you're not stepping on toes. I feel like Star Wars is kind of like a video game where you have to beat certain bosses to open certain levels, and so many levels are closed right now. You can't say the word lightsaber unless George Lucas has blessed you. So we had this very small couple of days where we could play with the Rose story, and when I got to talking to the story group, and when you have a Star Wars book or a piece and you're writing it, they often talk about what they want the heart or the theme or the core of that to be, and then you have to come up with the actions around it. And we just wanted to show the relationship between Rose and Paige, and that Rose is all about being smart and tenacious, and she doesn't think she's special, and she freaks out when she meets Poe for the first time, and when Princess Leia talks to her, she's like, oh my god, she's a princess. I originally, and if we're allowed to talk about deleted scenes, I had in here a little quip where she was like, oh my god, everything she says should be on a motivational poster. Just because that's what it would be like for a normal person. We're all not, Han Solo walking in and be like, I know all you people. I'm the general. Sometimes you're like, oh my god, it's Poe Dameron. So it was communicating that little, that place where a little girl watching Star Wars, who might be like, well, maybe I'm not a Rey, maybe I'm not a princess. And you're like, but you still have a role to play, and you can still be a hero.
And Derek, you were drawing this obviously before seeing the film, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how were you able to wrap your head around who she was from a visual standpoint?
It was 100% off the script, which, and the fact that it ended up being so close is all Delilah, so. But I was working off blurry photos of toys because they only sent a couple shots over, so it was pretty funny. And I was shocked at the first scene of that movie because I thought Paige would be a main character based on what we did. So.
Spoiler.
Well, it's also
I
fun
just- come
because
Yeah.
in all I wrote for Star Wars Forces of Adventure too, and in everything we have this, maybe there's this instinct, but we on both things would be like, Rose is not a thin girl, like she's got some meat on her, and so it's been nice to be doing something visual and be like, no, like she's not wearing an attractive outfit, she's not a thin girl, like she's muscly and she's working.
Yeah, she's awesome. We also did a very special series called Forces of Destiny, 5 issues that each focus on one female character in line with a Lucasfilm initiative called Forces of Destiny. And Delilah, can you kind of talk about the one that you did, which is fabulous?
Oh, bless you. Yeah, so the Rose and Paige Tico story in this, since I got to write 2 Rose and Paige stories, the first one we talked about with the story group, we kind of came up with the idea for Rose Knows, where it's, her doing kind of STEM problem solving on this ship where she's, there's an older guy who's like, kid, you can't do this. And she's like, I'm going to do it. And the second one, it was almost, we didn't have kind of the story group, and I just got to pitch to Denton Tipton, who's my editor, and he liked the story about the 2 sisters going on an adventure on Dakar, which is the base that the rebellion abandons. My entree to Star Wars was the Ewoks. I love murder bears. I mean, you see that in 1983. I got to stay up late. It was like my first staying up late, and I was like, oh my God, a little girl crash lands on a planet and befriends murder bears. I'm so here for this. So I love the animals. So I wanted to really do kind of a jungle story and come up with this animal. So I came up with these things called squonks, where, I'm like writing, I'm like, it is the most ridiculous animal you've ever seen. Like if a goat and an ostrich had an ugly baby with a beard. Which, it's Star Wars, you can go with that. So it's really fun. Nicoletta Bardari did the artwork. It's amazing. It looks like Lilo and Stitch to me. But I love getting to see Derek's version and Nicoletta's version. Oh, dude, we actually have it.
Yeah, I'm skipping around. That's cool.
Yeah, so it's magical to see it kind of come to life. And I guess in some comics, like creator-owned stuff, you have to give them a lot of, this is what the castle looks like. Here is the background. Here is, what's on her bedside table. And with this, I was like, how much detail do I need to give Derek? And they were like, none. He lives in Star Wars. And it was like a joy because there's so much kind of shared love and collaboration.
Yeah, definitely. Comics are all about the collaboration. And I wanted to call out this beautiful cover by Elsa Charretier, who's been contributing a lot to the Star Wars line, and we're very lucky to have her. And you also did this wonderful issue that I really wanted to highlight because it's basically the cutest thing of all time.
Yeah, this is proof that if you beg story group enough, they'll be like, fine, you can have 5 pages, just shut up.
Yeah.
So I was like, you need a porg comic.
How was it writing in the voice of a porg?
It was like writing my own autobiography. Get on the ship, annoy people, mess with the chess pieces, get into people's business in the bathroom, rip out some wires, have some babies. Yeah, it was amazing. But I love that there's one on the cover of the pug or the porg who's holding everybody's stuff like he just stole it, and he's got this look like, oh yeah. And I was like, that's straight up perfect.
I think this is a perfect example of how great these Star Wars Adventures books are. It's just a little slice of life from the Star Wars universe that's kid appropriate, but fun for everybody. So definitely check these out. All these books are available now. And I wanted to show off a couple more of these gorgeous covers that Derek did. And Derek, can you talk what you can talk about that one on the right? Can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, Kevin Scott, who's the writer that I'm working with, and I are doing a whole 3-part Han Solo and Chewie story that takes place right around the new movie. And it's pretty much them just being chased by bounty hunters and ending up in worse and worse situations.
Cool.
And it's
so
really fun.
this is available for Free Comic Book Day.
Right.
So on May 5th?
Mm-hmm.
Is that
And then
Free
it
Comic Book Day?
continues in issues 10 and 11.
Correct. Make sure you pick this one up. I think it's going to be a really hot item, so get there early. Oh, Ryan, you've sat so patiently and kindly. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So Ryan is writing a crossover that we're doing with Dynamite, G.I. Joe, $6 Million Man.
Yeah.
And this is set in the real American hero kind of landscape of G.I.
Yeah.
Joe. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what that means? Did you grow up reading the Larry Hama comics?
I was a bit of a late bloomer to the comics. I played with the toys in the bathtub last week, and no, I was I was the cool kid on my street. I had the hovercraft toy, so everyone's like, "Hey, Ryan, come over and play with your hovercraft." But no, sorry, and no, I got into the Larry Hama comics, which are amazing books, but that was just a few years ago when I was doing some deep dive on the books that I should have read that I didn't. And so that was kind of my touchstone. That was our touchstone for this book, was to do something in that vein, in that tone of Mr. Hama's work, but keeping it its own continuity. Like, we're borrowing a lot of elements from different G.I. Joe continuities and kind of making them work. We approached this story as I wanted to replicate, for me, what it was like to play with toys as a kid, because that's like really unabashed, wild, you could do anything. And so I kind of wanted to do that writing the series. And Shannon, the penciler, I gave him a lot of hard things to draw, and he very much grounded me a lot of times, like, because the pendulum swung a little bit too far, where I'd be like, we're doing this and jetpacks and like blowing up planes and stuff, and he'd be like, dude, you need to like, like this, you can't have just a ship with a gun that's bigger than the ship. It doesn't work.
Yes, you can.
But
Yeah.
it was the perfect balance of like, working together in that way.
Well, and kind of getting up to speed on this, I talked with the editor, Tom Waltz, and S.L. Gallant has been drawing a lot of the Larry Hama run, and he told me to ask you if his nerd knowledge is, who's nerdier, Tom or S.L. Gallant?
Oh, SL.
Yeah.
Hands down. Yeah.
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 It's next level, from what I'm
It's
understanding.
like encyclopedic.
Yeah.
I remember I wrote a scene in the first issue with what Cobra Commander's doing, his very Cobra Commander thing, where he's like announcing his evil plan to the world, and it's being
As you do.
broadcast like everywhere and like in Times Square. I'm like, yeah, and every screen in Times Square has to have Cobra Commander's face, and he's like being ridiculous. And I remember SL was just like, dude, in that time there was no screens in Times Square, and like it was just so like precise, which made me feel like, oh, I'm just kind of like, I'm like a kid playing with toys, like it doesn't matter. So
I think that's the fun thing about doing these crossovers. I mean, I've done some weird crossovers myself, like Star Trek and Planet of the Apes, where on the face of it, it doesn't really make any sense, except it's just freaking fun.
Yeah.
So besides the kind of obvious suspects, the Snake Eyes and stuff like that, were there any other characters that you were excited to write?
I really like Tomax and Xamot, the twins, the Cobra, weird, psychic connected twins. And so that was the thing I was most looking forward to, was getting to work with these crazy characters. But I mean, like every character in G.I. Joe is so ridiculous, and Steve Austin himself is very, he's like this like real, macho kind of smooth, kind of skeevy, but not guy. He wears a tracksuit. He's like tracksuit James Bond. So like, I was like,
We're going to put that on the cover. Tracksuit James
I
Bond.
relate to that a lot. So I like every character is really has their own voice and is really distinct. And
Cool.
yeah.
Tom also asked me to ask you, who wins in a fight, the $6 Million Man or the Atomic Man, and will we ever find out?
Ooh, that's I
I
can't say too much on that one. Who would win? $6 million.
We all win, is
Yeah.
the answer.
We all win. Yeah.
We're the
I think the
winners here.
$6 million man would win. Yeah.
Cool. So issue number 1 of this series just hit stores, I think, last Wednesday?
That's right.
Check it out. And I wanted to, we don't have any of the Trek group with us here today, but I did want to talk about a book that was recently announced. So we've been doing the TNG version of the Mirror Universe in a book called Mirror Broken. And due to the great fan response, we decided to do a special 5-week event that's coming out in May. This is basically the Mirror Universe TNG meets the Prime Universe. So it's Kirk versus Kirk, Riker versus Riker, except this Riker has huge muscles and a cool goatee with beads in it. So it's just complete over-the-top fun. Like I said, this is going to come out weekly in May. Some incredible artists are doing some incredible work on this. And then beautiful covers by J.K. Woodward. So it's definitely something that you'll want to talk to your retailer about so you can get them. And I will kind of tease that if you're a TNG fan, it's going to be a really good year for you. And I will say nothing else. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about a big thing that's coming out in April, which is the new IDW Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't know if there's any Sonic fans out there. Yeah. We're just starting to share art, and the fan response has been incredible, so thank you all so much. We do have a special Sonic IDW Facebook group, which is a great place to join if you want to get kind of all the latest information about what's going on. So the covers that you see here are just the beginning of the awesomeness that's about to descend on you in April. It's going to be 4 issues, so again, weekly. The Sonic comic fans have been waiting a long time to have their comics in their hands again, so we wanted to make sure that we were able to give you as much Sonic as possible in April. So definitely talk to your retailers about that. I know a lot of Sonic fans in the past received their comics via subscription. So in the Sonic Facebook group, there's some really good pieces on how to talk to your retailer, how to find your retailer, how to start a pull list, all that good stuff to get you up to speed so that come April, you'll have your comics ready and in your hand. So I promised you an exclusive announcement, and then we'll get to some Q&A. So if you'd like to start lining up, if you have any questions, please come up to the mic. The exciting announcement is that Orphan Black is back. Thanks to you guys, the great fan response. Now that Orphan Black is over as a TV show, we're going to basically do season 6 of Orphan Black, picking up where things left off. So we're great to have Helly Kennedy coming back to write for us again. Fico Osio is going to be our interior artist. You may know him from Visionaries. He's done some amazing work for us at IDW. And he also did a bunch of variant covers for the last Orphan Black season. And we're going to do variant covers by Elizabeth Beals, and they're all going to be kind of vacation themed, because basically our favorite twosome here is going to go all over the world. I don't want to give too much away, but they're going to be helping the Lita clones all over the world in ways that they don't necessarily know how they're being helped. And it's called Crazy Science because, they're going around doing these vaccinations. But this is really also a book about the crazy chemistry between the two of them. They've never really been able to have the most normal relationship. So this is almost a way that they're able to go on a first date and kind of have more of a normal relationship. And that'll be coming out in June. It's a 6-issue miniseries. So we're really excited about that. All right, Q&A. I see someone up there.
Hi there. Can you
Hi.
hear me?
Yes.
So first, I just wanted to say thanks for having this wonderful panel. And my family and I love IDW. In fact, most of our comics come from IDW because you have such a variety of all ages and for adults.
Thank you.
Anyway,
That's so
we
nice
really
to hear.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. So the family favorite, I have my kids are ages 7 and 5, is actually DuckTales.
Awesome.
And you might see where I'm going with this, but I wanted to know, perhaps, if you've heard of another comic that I hear the license is available on, and you was wondering if you'd be interested on picking it up, perhaps.
Oh, well, I'm very interested.
That-
I would love to make that happen.
You would
So
like
I
to
don't
make
have
the
any...
daring duck of mystery, the terror that flaps in the night, come, none other than Darkwing Duck, come to IDW. We'd be excited about that.
I would love that as well, too. And I'll put a bug in my boss's ear. How's that? But we're all fans of it as well. So it seems like it would be a great fit, and I would love to make that happen for
And
you.
I'm not associated with anybody that writes comics or does anything, but I would like to put a quick little plug in just for Aaron Sparrow and James Silvani, who are here, and I'm sure that they would be very excited to continue their work.
Cool. Thank you so much. And I love your cosplay. It looks really awesome.
You look amazing.
Yeah.
Gaskin, too.
Nice. Yes.
Anyway, thank you.
Yes, she mentioned DuckTales. That's another really great show. It is a great show. It's another great comic that we have in the IDW library of books that are great for kids, but also so darn good that you're going to want to read them as well. Do we have any other questions? It's okay. If you talk loud, I can tell everybody what your question is. Sure. Go for it.
Can you hear me? Yep. Okay, so So regarding the Sonic comic, I was wondering if possibly it could be a continuation of Forces in a way, because I saw the egg bishops, I think that's what they're called, from the video game, and so I was wondering, could it maybe be a continuation, because the game kind of left off on a low note, I'd say. That's really all I have. Thanks for the
Thank you for
amazing-
your question. And I think your question kind of speaks to how excited people are about the Sonic comics. And while there's not a lot that I can tell you about that right now, I do want to say that the way that we're approaching this, and Ian, of course, has been writing a wonderful Sonic comics for years, but this really is a new start. It really is going to be the IDW version. And that's not to say anything bad about the wonderful comics that came before, but this is a new day for Sonic, and we're really excited about it. So thank you. I hope you like the comics. Thanks.
Hello.
Hi.
Will IDW be coming out with any more original series in the future?
Yeah, definitely. We do a lot of licensed comics, obviously, but we also do creator-owned. One of the ones that I'm most excited about right now, and I'm a little biased because I'm working on it, is there's a second volume of Infinite Loop by Elsa Charretier and Pierre Collinet. There's a lot of great comics out there, but I think highlighting some of the ones that IDW does for creator-owned is a really good idea. Andy, obviously, Cosmic Scoundrels is creator-owned. And yeah. All right, next question.
Hi, my name is Lana, and I'm a big Transformers fan.
Cool.
I love the work you guys do.
Good.
And so I guess my question is there anything like really big coming up for Transformers?
Yes. And honestly, it's so big and there's so much to talk about. You noticed I didn't even really touch on it. There's a lot coming up, and there's going to be a Unicron Free Comic Book Day issue that kind of kicks all of it off. And I really don't want to say much more, but things are going to get very interesting. Also, if you're not reading Transformers Visionaries, it's actually kind of setting up some of the big things that are going to be happening. So don't sleep on that one. There's a lot of good stuff in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello.
Whoa, hi.
Hi. My name's Yoshi. I'm from the Transmissions podcast.
Hi.
I want more Transformers stuff.
Excellent.
Tease us with something else. Just a little bit more, please, please, please.
Are you reading Transformers Visionaries?
Yes.
Okay, so in the last issue, the last couple pages, I'm just going to kind of nod and smile at you.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, this is a crossover, and maybe people aren't as familiar with Visionaries, but it is something that I think does have weight and impact on the entire Transformers universe. So, again, you don't want to sleep on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to keep nodding
I
and
understand.
winking, and yeah.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah, thank you. Hello.
Yeah. So, Gem and the Holograms, are we ever getting Outraged Edition Volume 2?
I hope so. Not anytime in the future. Is it something that you want?
I want, and it was solicited, but then the comic shops stopped soliciting it, so...
It's kind of on hold for the time being, but if you send a letter, an email to letters@idwpublishing.com, the fact that you're excited about it and want it, that's something they need to know. So, thank you for asking.
Thank you.
How much more time do we have? Does anybody know? Cool. 5 minutes? Okay, cool.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Two-parter. One, that with the Hasbro universe and a lot of buzz about their movie universe, is there any chance they would come to you, talented people, and be like, hey, you should help out?
They should, huh?
Yes, they should.
Yeah.
Because it seems like that Bumblebee movie that I didn't even know existed that's coming out seems to be like them relaunching the whole thing, and then there's been Micronauts rumors and ROM and that kind of thing. And
Right.
your comics are awesome. Any chance?
Hopefully. If they're smart. No, I'm going to say that.
That's
Yeah, it's hard because what Hasbro has allowed us to do over the past couple years at IDW, it's a very special relationship. And of course, we don't have any control or input over what we do. But when you look back on it, the worlds that people have been able to create and the storylines they've been able to create, it's astounding. So Yeah, I'm excited for Bumblebee. Knock
Part
wood.
2.
Yeah.
Can you bring Godzilla back? Your comics are fantastic.
Thank
like,
you.
You guys built on that Toho stuff like crazy.
Thank you. I hope we can. Thank you.
Thanks. Awesome.
Hello.
Hey, so in regards to Sonic, I'm sort of really interested in seeing like what IDW does as far as like the reset of the Sonic comics. However, before Archie let go of it, there were of course those two wonderful Drive issues, and I'm wondering if there's a chance that we'll be able to see the third one since it was supposed to be like a trilogy.
I mean, I can't speak for what the Sonic licensor will want to do, but I think the way that we're looking at it is that we're, at this point, looking forward. I think it's really important that IDW make a strong statement and a strong way of establishing what the IDW Sonic comic continuity is going to be. So at this point, that's our main focus.
Okay, but it does seem to be more of a classic Sonic. I mean, you haven't shown a lot of it, but it does seem like more back to basics. Is that right?
Well, I personally think it has its own flavor and does bring something new to the table.
Okay.
So I hope you check it out, and definitely join that Facebook group, and come April, we'll all be able to discuss what you think. How do you think it went?
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Hi there.
Hey, so do you guys have any new news about Ninja Turtles, other than the cartoon, which is yay?
Yeah, that's definitely yay. I don't really have anything to announce right now. Hopefully in the next coming months, in the next couple conventions, keep your eyes peeled.
I'm really interested in what's going to come out next month in the solicits.
Huh, that's a good tease. Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Ryan. Hi there.
A little bit about your crossovers with other companies, what's involved to get those going, the time frames?
A lot is involved to get those going. It is a lot of work to do cross-company crossovers, because also keep in mind that IDW doesn't own these properties. So not only are you crossing over between two companies, you're then also crossing over between multiple licensors. But I guess the thing that I want to say is that it's worth it, and it's something that I think is so unique to comics, and that's why comics are awesome. Something like G.I. Joe, $6 Million Man, or Star Trek Planet of the Apes. Again, it is like playing with toys in a toy box, and you'd never see a movie like this or anything like that. So it is a lot of work, and it asks a lot of the wonderful writers and artists that work on the books, but I hope you find it worth it as well. Hi there.
Hi. So, how did Tom Sicoli's G.I. Joe Transformers come about?
Well, that's a really good example of what you can do with a licensed property when you have a really good relationship with a licensor. So if you guys aren't familiar with the Tom Scioli version of Transformers, how does one describe that? Insane?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like staring into the face of God.
It's like a wormhole to 1986.
Yeah, with a little kind of Kirby. It's insane. I highly recommend, even if you're not a really big Transformers fan, this.
It's pure joy, right?
Yeah.
It's pure joy.
Yeah, it's someone's pure creative vision put on the page. And I think it's a testament to the relationship that IDW has with Hasbro that they would let us do something that incredibly insane. Yeah. So I think it was a lot of discussions of the editors being like, are they going to let us do this? Oh my God, I can't believe they're going to let us do this. And then just making sure that everyone was happy. And I highly recommend it. Any other questions? Yeah.
In terms of pitches, what is IDW not looking for?
Maybe not a Batman story because we don't have Batman. Yeah, so if it's original material, I think it's fairly open. If it's a licensed book, I would just kind of look at the landscape of what's been done before and make sure what you're bringing to the table is kind of something new and exciting. But other than that, I think I'm fairly open. Yeah. Well, if there's, we got one question.
Sure. Thank you. I know you touched on the Star Trek The Next Generation, and also I've been liking the Discovery comics that
Oh,
you guys
cool.
have been
Thank
doing.
you.
Some of us are fans of the new series.
Me too.
Is there any chance that there's going to be any kind of crossovers in the with the new Discovery with any of the other Star Trek comics that you're currently doing at all?
I mean, in time, I would assume that there would be, but again, kind of like Sonic, when you have something that's so new, I think it's important that we first kind of establish Discovery for what it is before we start crossing over with different ones. But it'd be something you'd like to see? Yeah, me too. Me too. We do actually have a couple more minutes if anybody wants to ask any more questions.
I got a question.
Go for it.
I was looking at the G.I. Joe pages you showed, and now I don't know a lot about G.I. Joe, but I know it seemed to be those characters and vehicles were modeled on the old toys. And I know Hasbro isn't doing that stuff anymore, so whose collection is that? Everybody's busting out.
My guess is it's probably SL Gallant's, right?
Very toy accurate.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your reference materials are or what you're given from Hasbro, but it seems to me that somebody's going off real things.
I would not be surprised at all.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would send a lot of reference to SL for like vehicles within the story, but he would also come back to me with, how about we do this one, or like his encyclopedic knowledge would be like, actually this person didn't fly this jet kind of thing, or he would just do it how he saw fit. I think that it's been real nice writing this series because both Hasbro and IDW are really like, you guys are cool, like go do your thing. Like it hasn't been at all restrictive or like super like nitpicky at all. It's been actually kind of surprising how like open it is for us.
Yeah, and a lot of times with licensors, if you just ask, they have 97 PDFs of reference material that you can kind of look at as well. And a lot of times for something like this, I would go online and just look for like collectors groups and things like that. Thank God for the internet. I don't know how people made comics before. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
Is Bigfoot going to be in there?
I don't know. I think perhaps in the announcement image, SL drew up like a specific pinup for it, and Bigfoot did show up in that one.
Sweet.
I think at some point, Tom, the editor, was like, "We got to put Bigfoot in there," and I was like, "You know what? You're right." But I didn't write it in the script. But I have a sneaky suspicion that because SL and Brian, the penciler and inker, they both really like Bigfoot. So
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Any last questions? There's someone over there. Yeah.
With the combined Hasbro universe, is it supposed that Gem is technically part of it, but not
I think that's basically the long and the short of it. Sure. The question is, in the shared Hasbro universe, is Gem basically part of that universe? And I think the way we think about it is that maybe the Transformers might like pop in a really good Gem CD now and then and rock out to them. But no, it's not affected by it.
And
that would be
Sarah,
fun.
is the Clue Mansion in the shared Hasbro universe?
Yes, it
Okay,
is now.
excellent,
Just
excellent.
because you want it, I will do this for you.
Thank you.
So that means Carlos is in the shared
Yeah.
Hasbro universe, isn't it?
Nice, yes.
Interesting.
So cool.
Yeah.
The book is so cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. You have one last question?
One last question. Since we're talking about the Hasbro universe, is there anything dealing with the My Little Pony comics that you guys do coming up that you're able to mention in the panel?
Not today. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, stay tuned on that one. Oh, special guest star, Stephen.
Please. No, I have a speed round question for everybody, just because we have so many amazing creators on stage, and we work with so many amazing licenses. What haven't you guys gotten to take a crack at that you would love the opportunity to
Ooh,
write
good
or draw?
question. Paul, you want to start?
I'd say Judge Dredd, Not Gunning for Your Job, or Godzilla if you were to start those up again. Yeah.
Cool. Mark?
I don't know, maybe Transformers.
Cool.
Also Transformers, but also I just heard that they're reissuing the original My Little Ponies, and I was in Ridgeway the day that occurred, and like, I would love to see Minty and Snuzzle and Butterscotch all show up and be like, "Hello, Princess Twilight. What do you do with us?"
That would be really cool. Right. How about you, Max?
I'd like to take a crack at Ninja Turtles sometime. I think that'd be awesome.
Oh, you'd be good at that. Yeah.
I actually got really, really sick, and I took way too much cough syrup, and I wrote a Transformers pitch that's insane. And I didn't send it off because I was just like, this is...
So is it called Robo-Trippin'?
It's like literally every Transformer dies.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Derek?
Probably something crazy like Mars Attacks or Godzilla or something, or Ninja Turtles.
You'd be good at that. Yeah, yeah. Andy?
I'd love to try Judge Dredd.
You would be awesome at that, too.
Love that.
Jen?
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, you'd be awesome at that. Yeah. And mine, has anybody ever seen, it's a weird 80s movie called The Worst Witch with Fairuza Balk? That's my white whale. And I know, okay, we're almost done. And I know Netflix has a show about it right now, but I want to do the like 80s Tim Curry Worst Witch. So anyways, thank you guys all so much for being here today. And thank you, panelists. I really appreciate you being here.